Hey guys, tonight we dive into the kind of experience you don't recover from, you reincarnate from. Because this isn't your cozy cabin in the woods survival fantasy. This is medieval dynasty. You're not a chosen hero, you're not a peasant with a heart of gold, you're just a person with mud in your ears, regret in your stomach, and frost in places you didn't know had blood vessels. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, while you're here, drop your location and the local time in the comments. I love knowing where my sleepy history nerds are listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes to pain. Not dramatic pain, just cold, numbing, soul-level discomfort. The kind of ache that makes you aware of your elbows. Your bed is a patch of dirt that feels like someone buried rocks beneath it, out of spite. Your blanket, it's a damp wool cloth that smells suspiciously like cabbage and defeat. There's no sunrise, not really, just a dull smudge of light leaking through the cracks in your wall. The wall being 3 crooked planks of wood and something that might be dried dung. You pull yourself up, groaning like your joints are auditioning for their own tragedy. Your name doesn't matter, no one cares. You are the new settler, and your job is simple. Stay alive, build shelter, gather food, and somehow avoid dying of infection exposure or someone else's incompetence. You take a breath and immediately regret it. The air smells like burnt oats, goat, and someone's attempt at a fire gone very, very wrong. In the distance, a rooster coughs. Not crows, coughs. Welcome to your first day. You shuffle outside, bare feet instantly soaking in the icy muck. Your hut is less a structure and more a conceptual gesture toward shelter. One wall sags inward like it's trying to give up, while the roof is a patchwork of bark, straw, and wishful thinking. Wind slices through every gap, turning your home into an artisanal wind tunnel. You try to stand up straight, but your spine cracks like dry firewood. There's no time to complain though, because survival doesn't start with heroism. It starts with not tripping over your own frozen shoelaces. Your first mission, find food. You haven't eaten since yesterday's bark soup, which was technically more bark than soup. The local foraging options include edible moss, maybe edible roots, and definitely regret this mushroom. The most nutritious item you find is a beetle hiding in a wet log. Protein, you tell yourself. You eat it. You cry a little. Nearby you hear a wheezing cough. Oswin, your neighbour, is dragging firewood while muttering about ghosts. He hasn't made eye contact with you since your arrival. His beard is less a style choice and more an ecosystem. He grunts something that might be morning, but it could also be you're doomed. Jury's out. Fire, gone. Sock, gone. Hope hanging on by a splinter. You try starting a fire. You don't have flint. You don't even have dry kindling. You use friction, prayers, and the tears of the innocent. Nothing works. Eventually you sacrifice your last dry sock and set it alight. It works, briefly. Then it starts to rain. And yet, you persist. Because you have to. Because quitting isn't an option. Because deep down, beneath the frostbite and humiliation, there's a spark of something. Desperation, maybe. Or spite. Definitely spite. Welcome to day 1. You're already losing. You spend the rest of the day building badly. You hammer crooked logs into crooked notches using a rock. And the word please. Your thumb becomes intimate with the business end of the hammer. Your hut gains a door. It doesn't close. It hangs there, like an awkward handshake. As dusk settles, so does the cold. You retreat into your half-built hovel, curl into your makeshift hay pile, and whisper a prayer to whoever handles medieval heating. Your stomach growls. You're alone. And you're freezing. But don't worry. There's still 99 more days to survive. You wake up to something warm crawling across your neck. It's not a blanket. You don't have one. And it's definitely not a dream. It's got legs. Tiny, ambitious legs. You slap instinctively, launching what is either a spider or your new roommate into the shadows. Morning, peasant. The fire you failed to build yesterday, is now a small pile of damp ash and embarrassment. You try blowing on it. Nothing. You poke it with a stick. Still nothing. You whimper softly and accept the truth. If you want heat, you'll need firewood, and the only thing harder than building a fire in this place is finding the fuel for it. Outside, it's colder than betrayal. The ground crunches beneath your feet. Not snow, just a thick layer of frost, like the world itself gave up overnight. You trudge toward the woods, dragging a crude hatchet that could double as a dinner spoon. There are no gloves, just blisters waiting to happen. In theory, it's just cut down tree, carry wood. In practice, it's hack at stubborn trunk with toy axe, curse loudly, avoid squirrels, cry quietly, repeat. The tree you target appears small. It's not. It's some kind of medieval oak hydra hybrid, and after 30 minutes you've removed a twig. Let's talk about firewood. And that's when you meet her, Gertrude. Gertrude doesn't smile. She doesn't blink much either. She informs you that a real man can chop wood with rhythm and prayer. You try both. You fail both. She tuts and disappears back into the trees. She appears behind you like a morality test, wrapped in a cloak, stitched from 12 generations of wool and vengeance. Her face is a roadmap of disapproval. She watches you fumble with the axe and says, "You're doing it wrong." You don't ask how she got there. You just nod, like that helps. Eventually you manage to bring back 3 logs, 2 of which you drop in the mud. Oswin watches from a distance, shaking his head like a disappointed uncle. Your back screams. Your hands bleed. You light the fire using dried moss and what's left of your dignity. It flares for a moment, then dies. You collapse beside it, defeated. And just then, the door opens. It wasn't locked, because you don't have locks. Oswin appears with an armful of firewood and a single, guttural word. Pity. You don't thank him. He doesn't wait. He drops the wood and leaves. Welcome to medieval friendship, transactional, judgmental, deeply flammable. By now. It's midday. Your meal is a slurry of boiled tubers and boiled disappointment. You try seasoning it with some old garlic. It tastes like betrayal and foot. You eat it anyway. Let's talk housing. Your home is still missing a wall. You try reinforcing it with more sticks and mud. It looks like a medieval toddler attempted architecture while being attacked by bees. Around you, other homes are better. Marginally. You see smoke curling from the rooftops, actual smoke from actual fires. You envy them and then feel guilty for it. Survival, it turns out, is petty. As evening falls, the village changes. And then, night again. Smoke thickens the air. Someone's cooking something that smells edible. You're invited nowhere. You press your nose to the breeze like a stray dog and hope your stew of boiled dreams doesn't kill you. The wind returns like an X with something to prove. Your fire flickers weakly. You wrap yourself in your damp wool tunic and huddle near the flames. You can't stop shaking. Not from fear, not yet. Just cold, bone-deep, ancient cold. The kind that makes you wonder if your toes are still attached. You hear the rats again. You pretend you didn't. They're in the walls, the roof, your imagination. You hum to yourself. Badly. Just enough to convince the darkness that you're too annoying to bother. You lie back. The stars above are shockingly bright. There's no light pollution, just real pollution, the kind that grows in your food and infects your lungs. You cough twice. Make a mental note to not die before sunrise. Day 2 is over. You're still alive. Barely. You wake up choking. Not from smoke. That would have required a fire. No, this is the delicate sensation of breathing in your own frozen spit. Your nose is crusted over. Your fingers refuse to bend. Your blanket, read sackcloth, with a hole in it, has iced at the edges. Congratulations. It's winter now. Oswin bangs on your wall. It makes no sense, since your wall is made of woven sticks and dreams, but he does it anyway. Up he growls, then leaves. Oswin is not your friend. Oswin is your village's version of a notification bell, loud, alarming, and always signalling doom. Your bed, the pile of straw and small rodent droppings you've been calling a mattress, has migrated during the night. It now has a slight tilt, possibly from the rats beneath, possibly from the slope in your dignity. Either way, you're going to start the day hunched like a goblin. And speaking of goblins, a leak drips into a clay pot near your head. It's rhythmic, torturous. Medieval ASMR. Let's talk structure. Your hut is what medieval architects politely called a cruck house. Translation? 2 curved beams hold up your roof, and between them, wattle and daub. Sounds elegant, right? Wattle, ear sticks. Daub, mud, straw, and anything a pig might leave behind. Together they form something almost, but not quite entirely unlike insulation. You roll out of bed and straight into a puddle. You scream internally. Yes, again, you fetched water yesterday, and the day before. You'll fetch water forever. The village well is 50 feet away, which feels like a mile when you're wearing shoes with the structural integrity of damp paper. At the well, you meet Agnes. Time to fetch water. New, she asks. Agnes is 15, sharp-eyed and already more competent than you. She draws water with one arm while holding a chicken under the other. She watches you struggle with the bucket, sighs deeply, and does it for you. You nod. She studies your tunic. That used to be my uncle's. Let's talk water. In the 14th century, it's heavy, unreliable, and somehow always muddy. You carry 2 buckets back to your hut, spilling 30%, and your will to live along the way. You don't ask what happened to him. Breakfast is leftover stew. You reheat it over your reluctant fire. It now smells like regret and mildew. You eat around the floaty bits. And then, the chickens. Oswin says you're in charge of them today. There are 6. They hate you. 1 pecks your shin. Immediately, you swear under your breath, and Gertrude pops up behind you again like a cursed wind chime. You apologize. You swore, she says. She sniffs the air. Your stew's gone off. You cry a little. 1 chicken escapes. You chase it barefoot into the hedgerow, scratching your legs on thorn and shame. Agnes watches. She does not help. The chicken wins. You return to the village with a limp and a single feather. Oswin shrugs. Better than yesterday. Progress. Around midday there's an announcement. The Reeve Edgar, who looks like a mix between a monk and a tax form, declares that the village will observe St. Ealdgyth's Day. You ask what that means. Drums, someone says. And stew. They laugh. You ask if there's meat. Turns out, St. Ealdgyth was a virgin martyr who once saw a bird fall from the sky and took it as a sign to fast. So now, every year, everyone fasts, but with drums. Medieval logic. Your fire refuses to light. Night comes quicker than expected. You pray. To St. Ealdgyth, to the chicken you failed, to any god with access to Drury kindling. Nothing. You go to bed early, which in medieval terms means lying in the dark, trying not to sob too loud. The rats return. You try pretending they're just ambitious squirrels. It doesn't work. You hear singing faint from the edge of the woods. You don't check it out. Because you've learnt something important, surviving here isn't about strength or skill or even prayer. It's about knowing when to stay inside. Your body wakes up before your brain does. The rooster's been at it for what feels like an hour. And there's something cold and wet pressing against your heel. You lift your leg and realize a frog has moved in overnight. It blinks up at you, mildly apologetic. You blink back, less forgiving. You dress in the same tunic as yesterday because there is no new here, just slightly less filthy. You rub your hands together near the fireplace. It coughs ash into your face like it's offended you're still trying. Outside, the village exhales steam. The sky is grey. The ground is greyer. There is no such thing as warm. On cue, Oswin reappears at your doorframe, holding something squirming and furious in a sack. You're learning to barter, he grunts. You are not ready for this. The sack contains a piglet. The piglet is not thrilled about being alive. Oswin ties the bag at your waist and walks off without elaboration. You trudge into the centre of the village where the market is already coming to life. You're learning to barter. Let's review the rules. Bartering in the medieval world isn't about value, it's about survival politics. No currency means everything's fluid. A piglet might be worth eggs, or a shovel, or if you insult someone by accident, nothing at all. A man named Watt elbows you. That's mine, he says, pointing to the piglet. This isn't your modern farmer's market with jars of honey and acoustic music. This is a muddy patch of trampled grass, angry people, and livestock screaming like they know the future. You shake your head. Oswin gave it to me. The market reeve? Alrek arrives to settle the dispute. He listens, nods, then demands 3 eggs as arbitration tax. He squints. That's my pig. You look down. The piglet bites your thigh in agreement. You have no eggs. What takes the piglet? Oswin reappears seconds later. Didn't say to keep it, he says, grinning. You hand over your shoes instead. Lesson learned. Gertrude arrives, wheeling a cart of herbs and ancient bread. I'll trade you a root that cures headaches, she offers. Only side effect is nose bleeding. You ask if it's worth it. She leans in. Depends how loud your chickens are. You trade her your last strip of dried meat and your pride. Later you find Agnes standing near the well again. She has a new cloak. You compliment it. She shrugs. Traded for it, she says.
You ask with what?
She just smiles. Guess. Back at your hut, you inventory your life. You now have 1 broken shovel, half a loaf of questionable bread, 2 unboiled beets, and a goat skull you found in the woods that you're afraid to throw away. The day's almost gone. You try one more time to fix your roof. It goes badly. The ladder collapses. You fall into a bush and discover nettles. Lots of nettles. Your skin buzzes for hours. At dusk, the reeve returns. A local boy named Pip sees the whole thing. He says nothing, but gives you a dead bird as consolation. You bury it with surprising reverence. You have no grain. He asks for your grain contribution. You offer him your last candle stub. Your hut smells like smoke and wet fear. He accepts, but writes your name on a scroll anyway. For next time, he says, and walks off. You sit on the floor. You nibble a beet. It tastes like revenge and sadness. Somewhere outside, someone is singing again. You don't recognize the words, but the melody, it's the sound of someone still trying. And for now, so are you. Hey, remember how you thought the chickens were your biggest problem? Today you meet your actual worst nightmare, laundry day. You wake up to the sound of splashing and arguing. Outside, Maud and Gertrude are hunched over the riverbank with a sack of tunics, shouting about soap root and elbow grease. They see you. You try to slink away. Too late. Get your linen, duckling, Gertrude barks. It's your turn in the suds. Let's be clear. This isn't drop a Tide Pod and scroll your phone kind of lawnly. This is haul yourself and all your sins to a frozen stream and beat fabric with a stick until one of you gives up. Maud hands you what might have once been a shirt. It smells like soup and horse. You don't know where your linen is. Laundry in the medieval world wasn't just a chore. It was a public humiliation ritual wrapped in frostbite. Women did it communally, mostly because they had to share lye, a harsh soap made from ashes, and old anger. Lye doesn't gently cleanse. It removes the top layer of whatever it touches, including hope. You kneel at the stream, dunk your tunic, and immediately lose all feeling in your fingers. Beside you, Maud slaps a frock against a smooth rock. Gotta show it who's boss, she grunts. You try the same. The rock wins. Gertrude offers you a handful of soap root. It's slimy and smells like disappointment. You rub it on the tunic. The smell gets worse. Halfway through, Agnes arrives. She's somehow still dry. Laundry day, she says. Brave. You try to smile. Your lips crack. While scrubbing, Maud starts talking about the old days. Before the plague, she murmurs. People used to think water could carry demons. You blink. Still might, Gertrude adds cheerfully. You glance down. There's something wriggling near your soap. Historians still argue whether certain illnesses were spread more by water or by the lice we all wore like jewellery, Maud continues. Either way, rinse twice. You decide not to ask. After an hour, your hands are red, your clothes are damp, and your dignity has floated downstream. Maud claps you on the back. Not bad, she says. For a first-timer, Gertrude pulls a beetle from her bonnet and flicks it into the current. You'll be fine, she says. Just don't sleep in wet clothes. Unless you want your teeth to fall out. You run home clutching a bundle of dripping cloth and what's left of your willpower. Hanging them to dry inside is a joke. Your hearth won't light. Again. You light a taper and whisper desperate, slurred words to Saint Hunna, patroness of laundry. The flame sputters. The smell of wet wool fills the room. There's a dead pig in the lane, he says. Help me move it. Then Oswin shows up. You don't ask questions anymore. When you finally collapse onto your straw pile that night, you reek of river mud, lie and a little bit of pig. Together you and Oswin heave what used to be old Matilda into a wheelbarrow made of 3 boards and a prayer. The pig smells like despair and rotting cabbage. Halfway to the compost heap, a wheel falls off. The pig rolls. You follow. Oswin laughs so hard he nearly chokes. At least someone's enjoying themselves. But Maud was right. You didn't freeze. Your teeth are still in your head. And you kind of almost did laundry. Saint Hunna would be proud. The rooster crows again. Of course he does. He's the only creature in this village with job security. You groan, roll over, and come face to face with a beetle the size of your thumbnail. It blinks. You blink. Mutual respect. You both move on. Today is harvest prep. You've heard whispers about the harvest ever since you arrived. Always with the same tone people use for phrases like root canal or surprise tax audit. Now it's here. Or rather, you are here, and the harvest is always hungry for bodies. Oswin appears again. You're beginning to suspect he's some kind of folkloric punishment. Field's ready, he says, tossing you a hoe. The wooden handle is smooth from centuries of calluses and regrets. You trudge out with a few others. Gertrude, Nord, Watt, even Pip, the boy with a gift for funerary birds. The field stretches ahead like a poorly maintained rug, uneven, patchy and half covered in goose droppings. This isn't some romantic golden wheat field waving in the breeze. It's mud, rocks and ankle-biting roots. Harvest prep means weeding, digging, sweating and trying not to cry when you realize the fertilizer is just another word for communal waste. The sun climbs slowly. You dig. You sweat. You ask a question and immediately regret it. Why is this patch so rocky? Maud spits into the soil. Old burial site, she mutters. You stop digging. Gertrude shrugs. Might be bones. Might be potatoes. Gertrude tells you about the last big harvest when they lost half the carrots to a mysterious rot and the other half to Walter's goat, who achieved temporary local fame and permanent exile. The hoe hits something hard. You choose not to look. Still, the day drags on. Historians still argue whether medieval crop blights were divine punishment or just extremely bad luck, she says, wiping her brow with a square of linen that's definitely also been used as a bandage. You take a break and sit on an overturned bucket. Pip brings you a turnip. For energy, he whispers solemnly. You bite into it. It tastes like chewing a wet boot. You nod in thanks anyway. By mid-afternoon the field looks slightly less tragic. He walks off. You genuinely can't tell if that was praise. Oswin inspects your row. Better, he grunts. Won't feed a village, but might feed a rat. Back in the village square, people gather for the evening tally. The reeve is already sweating through his robe and looking for someone to blame for everything from bad soil to cloudy skies. You stand near Gertrude, hoping her invisibility cloak of sarcasm will cover you too. But today, miraculously, he doesn't call your name. Instead, he fines Watt for insulting a bishop's hat. Watt protests. The reeve points at a chicken feather on his tunic. Mockery, he declares. Everyone disperses. That night you lie awake too sore to sleep. Your hands are blistered, your knees ache, and there's dirt under your fingernails that might be permanent now. But you did it. You hacked weeds from sacred graves, made peace with Pip's turnip, and somehow weren't fined for breathing incorrectly. The harvest is still coming, but so are you. Not church bells, not the friendly come pray and regret your sins kind. No, these are handbells. Clanging. Fast. Urgent. You wake to the sound of bells. You sit up so fast you nearly headbutt the thatch ceiling. Gertrude bursts into your hut without knocking, holding a bucket and wearing her angry apron. Fire, she says. You scramble after her barefoot, out into the grey-pink dawn. Smoke curls above the smithy. Not towering flames yet, but smoke enough to get everyone running. You join the bucket line like it's your assigned fate. And maybe it is. The rule is simple. Throw water, don't die, repeat. The medieval fire brigade is just villagers with buckets, usually leaky ones. You stand between Oswin and Maud, who's muttering a prayer that involves Saint Florian and possibly a bribe. The smith, a sweaty man named Alric, is shouting about a faulty bellows and blaming the devil. Everyone ignores him. You pass the bucket, your arms shaking, your face smeared with soot before you even touch the fire. The flames haven't taken the building, just the wood pile. Lucky. Gertrude throws her bucket with a growl. It barely hits the edge. Oswin follows. You throw next and manage to soak your own shoes. Maud pats your arm. Intent counts. Alric offers everyone a mug of thin beer and a heartfelt apology that includes the words demonic wind draft. Eventually the flames die down. So does your adrenaline. Your hands smell like ash and despair. Your tunic is scorched. The village is unimpressed. After breakfast, turnip mash again, Maud assigns you your new duty for the day, flea combing. You nod, sipping beer and trying to ignore the lingering scent of burning pig hair. Later Gertrude tells you that fires used to sweep through entire towns. Thatched roofs, wooden frames, open hearths, and drunken candle use made medieval villages one spark away from extinction. Historians still argue whether the increase in stone buildings was about safety or just showing off, she adds. See, lice and fleas weren't just a nuisance, they were roommates. And not the kind that keep their side of the bed clean. They lived in your clothes, your bedding, your hair, and they bit. Constantly. Yes, that's real. You're given a fine-tooth comb carved from bone and sent to delouse Gertrude's children. They line up grimly like tiny soldiers. Pip hands you a frog for luck. Don't squish it, Maud warns. The smell stays for days. One by one you part hair, scrape gently and flick fleas into a clay bowl. Occasionally, something worse shows up. A tick, a beetle, a mystery. By midday your back aches and your sanity is fraying. This seems backwards, but you say nothing. You ask Gertrude how she handles it. She shrugs. You stop noticing, she says, until someone important visits, then you wash. You ask, half joking, if there was ever a time when people weren't crawling with insects. She laughs so hard she chokes on her barley snack. The bowl is full of squirming black specks. You want to scream. No one is clean, she wheezes. Not even the monks. Especially not the monks. Instead, you pour it out behind the privy and whisper a quiet apology to the dirt. That night you dream of combs. Thousands of them. Marching. You wake up itching. Everywhere. Your scalp, your arms, your legs, places you didn't know could itch. You sit up in your straw mat and glare at Pip, who's curled next to the fire, holding what looks like a flea-sized noose. He shrugs. Vengeance, he mutters. You don't ask. Maud greets you with a hearty slap on the back and a mission, wood collection. Simple, right? No, because nothing in the medieval world is ever simple, especially not the act of dragging dead trees out of damp woods with a rope made of braided animal gut. The forest is darker than you expected. The trees press in like judgmental relatives. The underbrush is wet and teeming with spiders, each one seemingly named and known by Pip. You trudge toward the edge of the forest with Oswin and Gertrude, both of whom carry axes and what you now recognize as deeply repressed rage. Gertrude points at a fallen tree. Good one, she says. Unless it's cursed. You blink. Cursed. Oswin grunts. Some trees belong to the elves. You wait for the punchline. There isn't one. Historians still argue whether these beliefs were folklore, spiritual resistance, or an excuse to avoid hard labor. Gertrude says, chopping cleanly through a branch with the confidence of a woman who fears no elf. Apparently, people here believe certain groves are protected by spirits, and if you take the wrong branch, your cows will dry up, your teeth will rot, and your crops will whisper to each other about your sins. You gather sticks, logs, and what might be half of a cartwheel. Oswin finds a squirrel skeleton and pockets it without explanation. You ask him why. For later, he says. You don't ask again. The walk back is harder. Everything you picked up is twice as heavy now. The mud is deeper, and at one point you're pretty sure something in the trees whispered your name. It might have been Pip. Back in the village, you help stack the firewood near the bakery. The baker, a round man named Aldwin, offers you a crust of burnt rye and tells you not to eat the acorns. Maud tried that once, sang in Latin for a week, and you take a bite of the crust. It's like chewing a roofing tile, but it's warm and not made of insects, so you count it as a win. Later that day, you're sent to fetch water. Now, here's what you assumed. Bucket, well done. Here's what actually happens. You walk a quarter mile to the communal stream, guarded by a goose with the soul of a demon. You kneel at the bank, trying not to slip on algae or dead fish, and fill 2 wooden pails that leak slightly and smell worse. This is your 3rd attempt today. Then, while trudging back, a child runs past and sloshes half your effort into the mud. By the time you return, wet, exhausted, and vaguely traumatized by goose combat, Maud nods in approval. You're getting the hang of it, she says. You blink. The hang of what? Dinner is stale bread soaked in onion broth. Gertrude offers a pickled egg. You take it, bite, and instantly regret all your choices. Misery, she replies cheerfully. You're still here. Somehow. That night, while you lie on your back staring at the flickering ceiling shadows, you realize something strange. But your arms are stronger, and the itch, still there. Your legs don't tremble quite as much. You didn't die from splinters or ghosts or Gertrude's pickled egg. If the goose allows it, you just might survive another day. You groggily sit up to find Maud already standing at the doorway, arms crossed, staring down the lane like she's expecting to see the apocalypse in wooden shoes. Not the terrified kind, the angry kind, which, you've learned, is somehow more common and far more dangerous. You're awoken by the sound of screaming. Turns out someone's sheep went missing. And guess who's going to help look for it? Again, because apparently the new villager is now the village's official unpaid intern. You. Gertrude thrusts a stick in your hand. For whacking bushes or wolves, she explains.
Or if someone tries to sell you a miracle, adds Oswin.
You're sent off with 3 other villagers to comb the fields. One is a boy named Leoric, who carries a bell and absolutely no sense of direction. The second is Agatha, who doesn't say much but sharpens a knife the entire walk. The third is a dog named Tibbles, who immediately chases a butterfly and disappears into the mist. You soon learn 3 things about medieval sheep. They are terrible at staying put. They all look exactly the same. If you lose one, it's your soul that gets blamed, not the fence. Eventually, Agatha points toward a thicket. You push through it and find the culprit. The sheep munching on someone's cabbages like it's been planning this all week. You drag it back with a rope that smells like mould and shame. You spend the better part of the morning wading through knee-high grass, poking under hedges, and yelling "Bay Bay A," which feels increasingly ridiculous by hour 2. Leoric rings the bell constantly. You ask if that helps. "Dunno," he shrugs. "Makes me feel involved." When you return, Maud's face softens for just a second. "You didn't lose it," she says. "That's rare." She gives you a potato. You almost cry. Back at the homestead, you're tasked with something truly vile, cleaning the latrine. "Take this," Maud says, handing you a paddle. The village privy is a wooden shack perched over a deep pit. It smells like punishment. You try not to breathe through your nose. You try not to breathe at all. It looks like a spoon designed by someone who hates joy. Your job? Stir the contents. Apparently, it helps it decompose faster. You feel your soul leaving your body. You stir, the stick squelches. You wonder how you got here. Historians still argue whether medieval sanitation was this bad everywhere, Maud says, as if that helps. But I say if it quacks like a plague. That night, you sit by the fire, holding your potato like it's a trophy. Your hands still smell faintly of dew. You lie down on the straw mat, itchy and slightly broken. You start to drift. But before sleep comes, Pip appears in the dark, holding something in his hands. He smiles. "It's the goose. Tied up. We can sleep now," he whispers. The ale tastes like wet bread and regret. You believe him. You sip it anyway, because it's the warmest thing you've had since arriving, and because drinking from a wooden cup while sitting on a crooked bench by the hearth makes you feel just for a second like you belong here, like maybe the bartering, the mud, the worm-bitten mushrooms, and even Cedric's smug little toad face were worth it. Maud gives you a look. Not approval exactly, but less like she's measuring you for a shallow grave behind the turnip patch. You didn't spill it, she says. That's something. Later, the children are asleep and the fire is low and you're drifting off in that itchy straw nest when you hear it again. Rat? You open one eye to see a shadow flicker across the rafters. Scuttling, probably. Ghost? Possibly. In the morning, you're handed an axe. Not a clean, symmetrical axe. A lopsided, half-splintered tool that looks like it once doubled as a doorstop. You think about investigating, but then remember what happened last time you stubbed your toe on the fire iron, woke the baby, and got yelled at for chasing phantoms with no pants on. You stay put. Today is Wood Day. There's no forest guide, no lumberjack safety tutorial. Just cut trees, don't die. You follow Oswin, your default mentor in all things painful, into the woods. He points at a patch of thin, tilting birches, them ones. You chop. Good swing, Oswin lies. Like a drunk goose trying to fence. The handle bites into your palm. Blisters form fast. Your aim is bad. The tree retaliates with sap. By noon, you've downed 2 trees, nearly lost a toe, and discovered an entirely new species of biting insect. Oswin tells you to stack the wood into even piles. You manage something that looks like a sketchy game of Jenga. Back in the village, Agatha is boiling something in a cauldron that smells like burned socks and celery. It's gruel, she explains. With herbs. For flavour. You taste it. Still socks. Over the meal you hear the news. A traveller was spotted last night by the edge of the woods. Alone. No horse. No shoes. Heard him singing, Gertrude says, stirring her cup. Said it wasn't in English, or Latin, or anything right. Leoric chimes in. Could have been a spirit. Or a Frenchman. Maud crosses herself. Either way, she mutters, keep the shutters closed. That night you lie under your scratchy wool scrap and listen to the wind. It sounds off, like something dragging along the rooftops. The fire has died. No one wakes. You close your eyes and pretend that cold breath on your neck is just a draft. Sleep eventually wins, but not all of you goes with it. You wake up shivering. Not just chilly, not mildly cold, bone-rattling, teeth-chattering cold, the kind that makes your joints creak and your thoughts fog. The fire is long dead. And so is your hope that layering 3 tunics would be enough insulation. You've discovered the medieval truth. No number of holes equals warmth. Maud's already up. You can hear her muttering and clanking things near the hearth. You peek one eye open and watch her poke at the ashes, grumbling like a woman locked in eternal combat with the elements, which, to be fair, she is. Then comes the worst part. It's bucket day. Your job is simple. Collect water from the village well. Except it hasn't rained for a week. And the last time someone checked, the bucket rope snapped and dropped the old tin pail right to the bottom. Your mission now includes 1. Not freezing. 2. Not falling in. And 3. Not bringing back the mud that Hugh tried to pass off as hydrating stew base last time. Finally it splashes, you bring it back up. The water is murky, but there's no worm this time, which you count as progress. At the well, the rope's been fixed, sort of. It now creaks like a haunted swing as you lower the new bucket. Every crank takes effort. You feel like you're slowly reeling in an angry octopus made of rocks. You shuffle outside. It's barely dawn. A pale, miserable sort of light seeps through the clouds. The air smells like frost and goat. Your breath fogs in front of your face like a ghost deciding whether to haunt you or not. The day unfolds like laundry, damp, repetitive, and oddly public. You carry the sloshing bucket home with the reverence of a monk transporting holy relics. You only spill a little. Maybe a lot. Maud accepts it with a grunt. Next time, use both hands. This is never good. You spend the morning hanging clothes across a rope that's already sagging from the weight of medieval misery. The shirts are stiff, the linen's threadbare, and someone's undergarments are so patched they look like medieval lacework. Around noon, the church bell rings, not for a sermon, for a meeting. The villagers gather at the green, a misshapen clearing near the dung heap, because town square is too generous. The bailiff, a wide man with a scroll and a suspiciously dry cloak, clears his throat. Silence. We've got a wolf problem. He continues. Tracks in the eastern woods. A sheep's gone missing. Gertrude gasps. Not Mabel. It was Mabel, he corrects grimly. A murmur ripples through the crowd. You, meanwhile, are doing the mental math on how far the eastern woods are from your hut, and whether Maud's shack qualifies as wolf accessible. Answer, yes. The solution? We'll need night watchers, the bailiff declares. Each household takes a turn. You shoot her a look. She ignores it. Everyone starts looking at everyone else. Maud, as always, does not blink. We'll take tonight, she says. And so, as the moon climbs above the frozen trees, you find yourself huddled in a lumpy fur cloak beside a slowly dying torch, gripping a wooden spear that looks like it was carved by a bored child. You sit. You shiver. You think you hear something. Twice. The shadows stretch. Your mind starts playing tricks. That rustle could be wind, could be death. Probably a fox, hopefully. Sometime after midnight, Maud returns with a replacement torch and 2 chunks of stale bread. If a wolf comes, she says, chewing, poke it in the eye. You nod like someone who has definitely trained for this scenario. Nothing attacks, but sleep does. You drift off once, twice. Maud slaps your shoulder. Wake up, brave knight. You endure the night. You're not just surviving anymore. And when the sun finally rises, soft and grey and unhelpful, you realize something important. Barely. You're adjusting. And that's almost worse. You're starting to smell like someone who's survived a dozen medieval days without modern plumbing, because you are. And today? Today is latrine day. You know, that charming medieval tradition of digging a fresh pit because the last one has, well, let's just say it reached capacity and now has a community of flies paying rent. You follow Cedric, who somehow always volunteers you for these jobs, toward the edge of the village, shovel in hand, and dread in heart. There's an art to it, Cedric says cheerfully, as though he's about to show you how to paint a sunset. Downhill, not too close to the stream, and mind the wind direction. You dig. It's not glamorous. The soil is reluctant. The shovel is bent, and halfway through you strike something. It's hard. Wooden. It's not a rock. Cedric peers in and mutters, "Old coffin, maybe." You look at him. He shrugs. Could be a pig trough. Could be cursed. Keep digging. But you drink it anyway, because she watches. Back in the village, Maud is boiling something in a cauldron again. It smells like betrayal and bark. She calls it medicinal broth. You call it the reason you almost threw up last time. The kids are playing outside, hitting each other with sticks and calling it sword training. One of them, little Edric, has a runny nose and no shoes. He chases a chicken into a muddy ditch, falls, gets up, and proudly holds the chicken like a trophy. You almost applaud. Child's got spirit, Maud notes, not unkindly, and for a fleeting moment you feel it. Not warmth, don't be ridiculous, but something like familiarity. Like you've been here long enough to know which corner of the hut stays driest, which parts of the gruel to avoid, and which insults from Agatha are meant lovingly, none. Afternoon rolls in, and it's time for fletching. Bows, you ask? No, arrows. Specifically fixing the broken ones and attaching feather tips using sinew that smells suspiciously like yesterday's stew meat. Your instructor is Baldric, an old man with 4 fingers and a laugh like a creaky door hinge. You nod solemnly. He holds up a crooked arrow. This one killed a stag, or a bishop. Memory's foggy. Your first attempt is lopsided. Your second is worse. By the third you manage a semi-straight shaft, and Baldric lets out a wheezy chuckle. Might not kill a deer, but it'll sure annoy one. Evening descends with its usual flair, smoky air, dim torchlight, and the scent of singed turnips. You join the villagers by the communal fire for tonight's entertainment. Stories. Gertrude recounts a love story involving a miller, a goose, and an accidental marriage contract. Leoric follows with a ghost tale that makes the younger kids scoot closer to the flames. Agatha shares her legendary encounter with a witch's egg, which was actually just a mouldy cheese. No bards, no lutes, just loud, unfiltered tales from mouths missing at least a few teeth. And then silence, the kind that settles heavy, expectant. All eyes turn to you. You freeze, you cough. Once, I saw a squirrel eat a candle. Say something. Anything. Maud smiles. Not bad. They laugh, harder than you expect. Beat. And for the first time, it feels like, maybe, just maybe, you've cracked open a door here. You crawl into your bed nest that night and stare at the thatch ceiling. The rat isn't there tonight. Or maybe it's just sleeping. Either way, you smile. Another day down. And drift off with straw in your socks and smoke in your lungs. Because you made it. 88 to go. Not because it's injured. No, just swollen shut from a mosquito, the size of an apricot, that apparently mistook your eyelid for a bedroll. You fumble upright, scratching places that probably shouldn't itch, and glance around the hut. The first thing you notice when you wake up is that your left eye doesn't open properly. Everyone else is still asleep, and there's a small puddle near your foot. The fire's nearly out again. Rain. You look up. Yep, drip drip, straight through the thatch roof. You grab the nearest wooden bowl and slide it under. Congratulations, you're now a medieval plumber. By sunrise, the village is already groaning into motion. Today is laundry day, which is less warm double bath vibes and more hand-cramping, finger-numbing slap fighting with wet linen by a freezing stream. Maud hands you a pile. Don't lose the baby's shift, she warns, or the spirits will follow you. You blink. That's a thing. She doesn't answer. Out at the stream, the water bites through your skin like ice and vengeance. You slap linen against rocks, awkwardly trying to mimic the rhythmic way Agatha thwops each tunic like it owes her money. Bubbles? None. Soap? Sort of. If you count mashed up soapwort root that smells like boiled beetles. And your hands? Red, stiff, and questioning all your life choices. As you wring out a cloak that somehow weighs as much as a dead horse, a boy named Torman runs past you shouting something about bees and waving his arms like a chicken on fire. Turns out, someone disturbed a hive. You flee uphill, trailing a wet tunic and 6 angry bees. Your reward? 1 sting on the butt, 2 on the neck, and the unforgettable image of Gertrude laughing so hard she drops a whole basket of potatoes. Turns out that someone was you. Later, while rubbing a handful of crushed mint leaves on your swelling wounds, thanks Agatha, you're called to help with thatched repairs. Apparently the leak you discovered was just one of 17. You're handed a bundle of dry straw, a wooden ladder, and an alarming lack of instructions. You limp back to the village like a stung, soggy warrior. W patch? Don't fall, Maud says. You climb. You nearly fall. Twice. But by some miracle, or sheer terror, you manage to plug 3 leaks. You come down with hay in your hair, splinters in your sleeves, and a vague sense of satisfaction, until Oswin squints at the roof and mutters, "You've thatched it inside out." Back to the ladder. By dusk you're drinking the worst ale of your life again, and yet you're strangely content, because laundry didn't kill you. Tiny victories, because bees didn't finish you, because when Leoric tossed you a piece of smoked fish, he didn't call you worm meal. As the fire crackles and the wind whistles through the chinks in the wall, Maud mutters something beside you. You lean in. She repeats, "You might not be completely useless." Coming from her, that's practically love. You go to sleep sore, itchy, and smelling like mint and mildew. But you go to sleep. You wake to the delightful sound of screaming, which around here is as good as a standing ovation. You bolt upright, bonk your head on a rafter, and stumble toward the door, only to find young Edric sprinting past, covered in soot, clutching what looks like a terrified ferret. High-pitched, frantic, and very, very close. What now, you ask no one in particular, but Maud is already outside, arms crossed. He tried to smoke it out of the woodpile, she says. You mean the ferret? She nods. Also set the hay cart on fire. You glance to your left. Yep, there it is. One very smouldering, very cursed-looking hay cart surrounded by shouting villagers and a growing chorus of chickens who are not handling this emergency well. Someone hands you a bucket. No instructions, just a look. You throw water, you throw more water. You mostly throw water on yourself. Straw bedding? Flammable. But eventually the flames die. Edric has retrieved ferret still attached to his tunic, and the cart is declared mostly intact, which in medieval terms means technically not ash. So begins Fire Safety Day, where Cedric walks you through all the many, many flammable things inside the average medieval home. Wool cloaks, flammable. Dried herbs hanging from the rafters. That jug of something suspicious in the corner, probably explosive. By midday you're tasked with helping rebuild a fire-break path between huts using only a spade, your back, and what's left of your patience. Your own hope and dignity, highly flammable. Meanwhile, Leoric carves ominous charms into bits of wood to keep fire demons away. You ask if it works. Just another Tuesday. Your arms ache. Your neck is sunburned. And someone threw a chicken bone at you for no reason. He winks. Depends how flammable the demon is. Come late afternoon, you're invited to assist with pottage duty. A task that sounds innocent until you realise it involves stirring a boiling cauldron of everything that didn't rot this week. Maud tastes it, squints, and adds a pinch of something green and mysterious. Needs more bite.
Root vegetables. Bones. A turnip that looks haunted.
You nod, pretending to know what that means, and try not to cry as the steam fogs your only functioning eye. He offers blessings, stories, and unfortunately a relic. The evening brings a visitor, a travelling monk named Brother Aldwine, robes dusty, sandals broken, smiles saintly. A tiny splinter, allegedly from the True Cross. He holds it aloft with reverence. Everyone gasps. You lean over to Maud. Do you think it's real? She doesn't answer, but her eye twitch tells you what you need to know. You end the night by helping patch a hole in the side of your hut using woven branches, dried mud, what appears to be an old sock. It's not pretty, but it holds. Brother Aldwine sleeps in the goat shed, just like you. Somehow, the fire crackles low again. Your body is a mess of sore muscles, mild burns, and persistent flea bites. But Maud hands you a cup of something warm and vaguely alcoholic. You grin. Don't die, she says. Not today. Not rot exactly. Not manure either. It's worse. It's the thick, unmistakable stench of boiled leather. A smell so foul it makes your teeth ache. You stumble out of bed and follow your nose to the side of the house where old Gertrude is cheerfully stirring a pot full of goat hide and bark. She smiles with all three of her teeth. The morning begins with the scent of something. Oh, today it seems is crafts day. Of course she is. Making glue, she says. Not finger painting, not popsicle stick castles. Nope, this is let's make our own shoes and repair the chicken coop with animal tendons day. You're handed a curved bone needle and a length of dried sinew. Maud gestures at the half-torn sole of her boot. You fail. Fix it, she says, as if you've ever repaired anything more complicated than a sandwich. You try. You stab yourself in the thumb. Twice. Cedric leans over with a mix of pity and amusement. Pull it through like you're gutting a rabbit. Your reward? A warm sip of mead, so strong it briefly resets your childhood memories. You have questions. None of them get answered. Somehow, after an hour and 4 more puncture wounds, the boot resembles footwear again. Sort of. More like a leather pancake that had dreams once. Then it's off to help the blacksmith. You'd hoped this part would be cool, fiery forge, glowing metal, epic hammer sounds. But in reality, it's 109 degrees. You're tasked with pumping the bellows over and over. And over. The blacksmith, a stoic slab of a man named Torwin, barely acknowledges you. But after 2 hours he grunts. Didn't ruin anything. Until your arms are rubber and the air smells like iron, sweat and roasted despair. Which, in medieval terms, is basically a standing ovation. You fall in once. You spend midday helping Agatha gather reeds from the marsh for basket weaving. The reeds are sharp, the bugs are sharper. She laughs once. You don't speak again. Later, as the sun sets and the geese start their nightly screaming because geese are medieval security systems, Maud hands you a new project, gutting fish. You try. She demonstrates once. The fish slips, flops to the dirt, and stares at you with deep, accusing eyes. You apologize to it, then immediately drop it again. She even lets you keep the fish head. For soup. Eventually you manage to open one up without gutting your own thumb, and Maud gives you a nod so faint you almost miss it. As darkness settles in, the village gathers by the central fire for music. A boy plays a harp with 3 strings. Someone else claps slightly off beat. The songs are old, strange, haunting, because you didn't ruin the boot. You listen, silent, still sticky with fish guts and covered in mosquito bites, but also somehow content, because you didn't burn the forge down. Because Agatha gave you half a smile when you handed her a near-decent basket. Progress. You fall asleep with your fingers sore, your clothes damp, and your feet wrapped in your newly stitched, whatever those are. But you fall asleep, and that in itself feels like a kind of survival. You wake to someone shouting the word plague. Not a great way to start a Thursday. You bolt upright, hit your head on the beam again, tradition at this point, and stumble outside just in time to see a haggard man galloping into the village on a foaming horse. He's yelling something about the next hamlet over, dead pigs and black boils. Everyone freezes, even the geese. Maud grabs your sleeve with white knuckles. Quarantine, she mutters. Now, the village erupts into controlled chaos. Buckets of vinegar are fetched. Herbs are hung in every doorway, sage, rosemary, something that smells like old feet. Everyone's burning something, lavender if they have it, peat if they don't. Smoke chokes the air. You don't argue. Fumigation, Agatha explains, handing you a smouldering branch, just in case. Of what? Evil spirits, or air demons. Historians still argue whether it was divine punishment or corrupted miasma.
You nod like that clears it up.
Leoric appears with a waxed cloth tied across his face and a wooden cane, which he uses to prod anything that moves. I read about this, he says. Don't breathe too deep. And no frogs. You help Maud scrub everything in sight with a lye-soaked rag that smells like regret and melted thith. Even the chickens get a rinse. One pecks your hand. You bleed. You panic. You don't ask about the frogs. Maud spits on it. He'll live. You're not sure if she means the chicken or you. By midday, a council of elders has declared the plague probably not real, but better safe than sorry. You're tasked with hauling barrels of waste away from the well, because nothing screams Thursday fun like medieval sanitation detail. At one point, a rat the size of a small dog scurries past with what looks like a loaf of bread in its mouth. It's hot. It's rancid. You learn things about human waste you never wanted to know. You salute it. That rat is doing better than you. Lunch is barley again, and turnips, and some greyish lump Maud swears is mutton. Back in the village, someone rings a bell. Not the plague bell, the come eat or die hungry bell. You chew slowly. Realise your taste buds have surrendered. Afternoon is spent preparing charms and warding tokens to hang on doors. Cedric gives you a dried frog leg, a twist of iron, and a tiny wax figure of Saint Apollonia. For toothaches, he says. I don't have a toothache. Give it a minute. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, you do. Night falls. No one sleeps well. At some point, Maud mutters, "We'll be fine." You lie there, itchy, paranoid, heart thudding at every cough, every shuffle, every whispered Hail Mary. She doesn't sound convinced. But you're still breathing. For now. Neither are you. You survive the night, and in this world, that counts as a win. Barely. Morning begins, not with birdsong, but with a sneeze, loud, dramatic, echoing through the rafters like a cannon blast. Everyone in the hut freezes. Maud's eyes narrow. Who sneezed? You look at the youngest boy. He points at the pig. The pig oinks in betrayal. No one laughs. Outside, the air is thick with anxiety and the unmistakable smell of wet hay. It rained last night. The thatch drips. The mud squelches, and everything, absolutely everything you own, is damp. Including your soul. You raise your eyebrows. But life doesn't pause, plague or no plague. Today you're assigned to help fortify the village defences. What defences? Turns out defences means piling sharp sticks in a vaguely menacing circle and hoping no one with actual weapons shows up. Cedric hands you a shovel and a bundle of pointed stakes. We make them tall enough to scare bandits, but not so tall we trip over them in the dark. A flawless strategy. Across the field, Leoric is digging what he insists is a tactical ditch. It's ankle deep and full of worms. You jab one stake into the earth, then another. After 3, your back is on strike and your palms look like you've been petting a hedgehog. Progress. You nod approvingly. Midday brings a downpour. You'll get it, Maud says, not looking up. Once the rain slows, you're roped into sewing torn tunics with Maud and Agatha. Your stitches are uneven. Your thread keeps tangling. You stab your own knee. You take shelter under an ox cart with a family of hedgehogs and a sheep who clearly resents your presence. You apologize. He bleats judgmentally. Afternoon shifts to a kind of quiet rhythm. Rain hisses in the distance. Children play by the ash heap, throwing rocks at a log and calling it dragon slaying. Someone sings softly, an old ballad about St. Margaret and a well that never dries. You probably won't. You pause. Listen. Feel something like peace. Briefly. Then, someone screams. A cart has tipped. A wheel's broken. A pig has escaped. Chaos resumes. It runs. You run. You're handed a rope and told, catch it. It wins. Dinner is cabbage soup and boiled grain. Again. Eventually, 4 villagers and a bribe of 3 boiled eggs coax the pig back home. You return mud-smeared, out of breath, and strangely proud. You eat every bite, and tonight, it needs it, because your stomach doesn't care about variety anymore. It just wants fuel. Because just before bed, Maud looks at you with that particular gleam in her eye, the one that means tomorrow will be worse. We're going to the forest. No explanation. Just that. The answer, you suspect, is everything. You lie awake that night, staring into the dark, listening to the steady drip from the ceiling beam, and wondering what exactly lives in the forest. It's unsettling. At dawn, you're woken not by Maud, but by the sound of a wooden flute playing a haunting melody somewhere near the woods. Up, Maud says, already lacing her boots. Forest won't wait. You mumble something resembling protest. It's ignored. Outside, fog coils low along the ground, thick and woolly. Trees loom in the distance, all dripping moss and menace. Breakfast is stale bread, rubbed with garlic. It's the best thing you've eaten in days, probably because it doesn't require chewing through cabbage water. Cedric meets you by the gate, carrying a curved blade and a woven sack. We're gathering herbs. You were hoping for mushrooms, or at least berries. No, he says. We're after wild mugwort, foxglove, maybe a few nettles. Sounds poisonous. Only if you're stupid. Reassuring. You follow the path into the woods. The light disappears almost immediately. So does your sense of direction. The ground squishes. Something howls far off. Maud leads the way, muttering names of plants under her breath like spells. Betamy for headaches, yarrow for wounds, eyebright for... That's new. She plucks something purple. It smells like dust and secrets. As you wander deeper, you pass a crooked tree covered in carvings, runes, crosses, something that looks like a stick man with too many arms. Protection symbols, Cedric explains. Or warnings. Historians still argue which. An hour in, you trip over a root and land face first in a bush of stinging nettle. Charming. Maud doesn't even flinch. Welcome to the club. By midday, your sack is full of questionable leaves, a few wriggling beetles, not on purpose, and at least one suspiciously large mushroom. Cedric pockets that one. For research. You don't ask. Lunch is hard cheese and rainwater collected in a leaf. A squirrel watches you like it knows something. Maybe it does. Maud kneels, Saint Melangial, patron of hares and refuge. On the way back, you spot a ruined shrine, half-collapsed stone overgrown with ivy. Someone's left a feather, a coin, and a tiny wooden doll at its base. She touches the stone. You do too. It's cold, but not unfriendly. Back in the village, you're tasked with sorting herbs by usefulness versus probable death. Agatha points at one. That'll cure a fever. Great, you say. I'll label them. Later, a travelling peddler passes through with a sack of trinkets and a weather-beaten lute. He sings a song about a knight who married a ghost and regrets everything. Then, at another, that'll stop your heart. Not because it was good, you applaud. Because it was loud. And alive. That night, the forest dreams stay with you. Moss, stone, that strange flute, and something watching. You wake up sweating, the fire's nearly out. Maud stirs beside you. We'll go back soon, she whispers. You hope she means to the forest. You hope she doesn't. Everything smells like wet goat. Even the things that aren't goats. Rain again. Because of course, you're wringing out your cloak by the hearth when Cedric barges in. We've got a leak. You blink? Where? He gestures upward. Yes, the sky, the entire roof. Turns out that patch you thought was decorative rot. Not decorative, just rot. The thatch is giving up. The water's coming in sideways. Which means today you're helping rethatch the roof. Maud hands you a bundle of straw and a tool that looks suspiciously like a fishhook and knitting needle had an angry baby. Don't drop it, she says. We only have the one. You climb onto the roof. You are instantly wet, cold, and aware of every poor life choice that led here. Cedric grins from below. Don't fall. That's the whole safety briefing. You begin weaving straw into the existing bundles, pulling cord tight, and silently praying that medieval gravity is kinder than modern gravity. It is not. By midday, your hands are blistered and your knees feel like pudding, but the roof is holding, mostly. You pause for a break, look out over the village. It's beautiful. Then a pigeon poops on your shoulder. Not in the way postcards are, but in the way of soot-covered lives quietly surviving. Smoke curling from chimneys. A child trying to ride a goose. A woman hanging herbs to dry, her fingers stained green. A limping dog gnawing on a stick like it's the best meal he's ever had. You take it in. Back to work. Once the thatch is patched, Maud rewards everyone with hot broth that actually has meat in it. Probably pigeon. No one complains. After lunch, a commotion, someone's cow wandered into the churchyard again. Father Bernard is yelling. The cow is unimpressed. Evening falls, and with it, a strange hush, the kind that presses down on you like a thick blanket. You help herd it back. Slowly, with gentle insults and a stick. Maud senses it too. Storm's coming. You glance at the clear sky. She's still right. As darkness settles, the wind picks up. Not just wind, that specific medieval kind that howls like it has stories to tell. You huddle near the fire. Maud tosses salt in each corner of the room. You ask why. To confuse spirits. You don't sleep easily. She shrugs. Depends on the spirit. Does it work? Outside, the trees bend and whisper. A shutter bangs once. Then again. There's a pressure in the air, like waiting for a knock that never comes. No one checks it. And somewhere in the distance, a bell, faint, muffled. You pretend not to hear it. So does Maud. You wake up to a quiet so deep it feels wrong. Not peaceful. Just paused. Like the world took a breath and forgot to exhale. You sit up slowly, half expecting to see smoke in the air or hooves in the sky, but it's just grey light leaking through the window. Maud's already gone. So is Cedric. The hearth is cold. You pull on your damp boots, still muddy from yesterday, and step outside. Not empty, just slowed down. People move quietly. No shouting, no banging. Even the dogs seem to something's off. The village is still. You find Maud near the edge of the woods, staring at a toppled cart. Raiders, you ask?
You look again. The cart is crushed. The tree split like an old bone. But what catches your eye is what's under it, spools of dyed wool.
She shakes her head. Tree fell. From the abbey, you ask? And they do. Mid-morning brings a pair of monks, cloaked and stern with a donkey and a glare for everyone. They collect what they can, say a brief prayer for the cart, say nothing for the missing driver. Maud nods. They'll come looking. Later, Agatha pulls you aside. Since you're already dirty, might as well help with the dyeing. You help carry spools. One breaks open rich crimson. It stains your fingers, smells like iron. You should have watched the road, one mutters. Today, woad, she says. You follow her to a hut that smells of vinegar and secrets. Inside are pots of coloured water, racks of dripping yarn, and an enormous iron cauldron. You stir, it turns blue, then green, then back again. Magic? Chemistry, Agatha says. And patience. She shows you the plants, the process, the stink. It's all worse than you imagined. You spend hours bent over steaming dye, sneezing from fumes and blinking through tears. But when the fabric is lifted, blue as a king's robe, bright as sky, you forget the pain for a second. By late afternoon your hands are blue, so's your nose. Agatha laughs. It'll fade. In a week, dinner is lentils and turnip. Again. You're not sure you'll last a week, but the yarn dries, flapping like flags in the wind. Not someone you knew, not. That night, a villager dies. But the church bell tolls, and the village gathers. No crying, just candles, and soil. The body is wrapped in linen, plain, simple. Return to the earth behind the chapel. Death here is not loud. Maud holds your hand. It's part of the calendar. Afterward you sit by the fire, your fingers still faintly blue, your back sore from bending, and the silence feels less like absence and more like reverence. Not sick, just the fire again. You wake up coughing. It smoked itself out during the night, leaving behind a fine layer of ash that tickles your throat and coats your teeth like regret. Maud is already up, her face lit dimly by the pale dawn coming through the shutter. She's crouched by the coals, blowing gently, coaxing them back to life with a bit of dry moss and sheer determination. You squeeze, it groans like an arthritic goose. You offer to help, she hands you the bellows. Eventually the fire surrenders to your effort, and the hearth flares awake. Maud nods once, then sets a clay pot to boil. You're not sure what's in it. You're also not sure you want to know. Breakfast today tastes like burnt leather and sadness. But it's hot, and your stomach stops growling. That's a win. Cedric bursts in, tracking mud across the floor. Pig's loose again. Of course it is. You chase the pig through half the village, across 2 yards, and past a very offended goose. The pig doesn't care about your feelings. It also doesn't care about Cedric's yelling or Maud's curses. Everyone applauds. You bow. Eventually it trots right into a patch of weeds and flops down, as if the whole chase was for your entertainment. But there's no time to rest. Today you're learning about charcoal burning, because apparently it's your turn to help make fuel. This means hiking out past the fields to the edge of the woods where an old man named Wimond waits beside a massive smoking hill of dirt. It looks like a buried hut, or a failed loaf of bread. That's a clamp, he says. Inside? A slow, smouldering fire turning wood into charcoal. Wimond hands you a shovel. We turn it later. If it blows up, run. The trick is controlling the burn, not too fast, not too cold, or the whole pile's ruined. Helpful. He teaches you the vents, the layers, the ways of reading smoke like it's scripture. You learn that white smoke is good, black smoke is bad, no smoke is death. By midday, you're blind and smell like a haunted fireplace. Maud brings bread and cheese, bless her. Also you learn that smoke always finds your eyes, no matter where you stand. Wimond takes a bite and says, "You do well at this." You're touched. Then he adds, "If you survive the month, you're less touched." Afternoon brings a downpour. You all dive into a hut made of sticks and moss. It's barely better than standing in the rain, but it's dry enough to share jokes and stories until the clouds clear. One story involves a man who accidentally turned his beard blue from woad and was mistaken for a demon. You don't ask if it's true. Back home, Maud's house smells of rosemary and cabbage. She's boiling something that may or may not be food. You help grind barley with a heavy stone. It's slow, mind-numbing work, but there's comfort in the rhythm. Later, as the sun sets, Maud pulls out a tiny carved figure, a saint maybe. She places it near the hearth. "For luck," she says. You don't argue. That night, thunder rolls over the hills. The wind rattles the shutter again, but the roof holds. It doesn't feel like the dark is trying to eat you. You sleep, curled near the fire, soot still clinging to your nails. And for the first time in a while, you wake with the taste of smoke still in your mouth, and your back feels like it's aged 50 years overknown. Outside, the world is shivering. Not snow, just a cold mist that clings to every surface like a warning. Even the birds aren't chirping. You tug on your damp wool cloak, which somehow feels heavier wet than it ever did dry, and step out into a morning that smells like wet leaves and impending misery. Maud is huddled near the hearth again, feeding it with thin sticks. "It's laundry day," she mutters, like she just announced a funeral. Washing clothes in the medieval world isn't a cheerful affair with soap bubbles and sunshine. It's an all-day knuckle-busting struggle involving boiling water, lye, beating things against rocks, and praying your fingers don't freeze off in the river. You think she's joking, she is not. Agatha appears at the door, already carrying a bundle of shirts, underthings, and a battered wooden paddle. And so it begins. "Come on," she says, "you look like you need the penance." The walk to the stream is muddy, steep, and treacherous. The rocks are slick, the air bites, and you nearly lose a boot to a particularly opinionated puddle. At the bank, the women get to work. The process is brutal. First, you soak everything in urine-soaked lye that's been sitting in a barrel for weeks. Then you scrub with ashes and sand, then rinse in the stream, then repeat until your arms feel like boiled noodles and your nose stops working entirely. Agatha notices your horror. Lye cleans better than anything, just don't let it touch your eyes. Thanks. Nearby, a young woman named Lynette is trying to scrub a mysterious stain out of a tunic. "Chicken blood," she mutters. "I think." You choose not to ask follow-up questions. The women talk as they work. Quiet gossip, worries about the harvest, whispered prayers for sick children, jokes about that one monk who always trips over the altar cloth. You begin to feel part of something miserable, cold, but part of it. Dinner is better than usual. A barley porridge, with carrot shavings and even a scrap of meat. Cedric claims it was a generous rabbit. By midday, your hands are raw, your sleeves soaked, and your patience obliterated. But the laundry flaps on branches and racks like battle flags. Damp, sagging battle flags. Back home, Maud gives you a cup of something warm. It smells like thyme and feet, but it clears your nose. You don't ask if it volunteered. Everyone gathers at the green near the well. Lanterns swing from hooks. Kids chase each other in the dark. The tinker sits on a crate, his eyes glinting in the firelight as he unrolls a tattered map. Later that night, Maud's sister arrives with news. A travelling tinker is in town, and he brought stories. He talks of distant cities with glass windows, of ships that float without sails, of spices that burn your mouth and kings who own elephants. You're not sure what's real, but it doesn't matter. For once, everyone is smiling. Maud squeezes your hand. "Some nights are worth remembering," she says. "And this might be one."
The stars peek through the cloud cover. The tinker sings an old song. Someone passes around a clay flask of something that makes your cheeks go numb.
Because even here, even now, there are moments that feel almost like peace. You sleep that night on a cleaner mat, stomach full, hands still tingling, heart strangely warm. The next morning, you wake up not to the sound of coughing or clanging pans, but to absolute silence, which by now is more unsettling than reassuring. You sit up, listen, and then you hear it, a low, distant hum. Not a song, not bees, a communal, wordless kind of noise. Curious, you pull on your crusty cloak, push open the door, and follow the sound. The entire village is gathered in the green. The red tabard man unrolls a scroll. "By decree of Lord Halward," he bellows, "all ye who dwell on these lands owe your winter levy by next moon's end. Any who fail shall forfeit grain or livestock, or a son." In front of them stands a man in a red tabard and leather boots, so polished they seem like sorcery. A tax collector, and behind him, 2 guards, arms crossed, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. The villagers say nothing. Not yet. Maud squeezes your arm. Her lips are tight, her jaw tighter. You've never seen her look angry before. "What's a levy?" you whisper. The taxman finishes his declaration and begins walking from door to door, scribbling notes, counting goats, measuring sacks of barley with a scoop that seems to shrink with every household. She doesn't answer, but her son Cedric mutters, "It's when the rich remember we exist." You see Agatha haggling over a chicken. You see Lynette arguing about the value of her loom. You see an old man hand over his last 2 coins in silence. No one is smiling now. By the time the collector reaches Maud's home, she's composed again. The guards step in when a youth named Rob tries to flee. They don't strike him, but the grip on his collar leaves a mark. 2 chickens, half a bushel, and him, he says, pointing at you. A servant? Maud doesn't flinch. A guest. He raises an eyebrow, jots it down, and moves on.
You're trembling.
Maud shakes her head. You're not a coin to trade. I can go, you whisper. I'll work somewhere else. Earn something. The fire is dim, the room tense. That night, no one eats much. Cedric finally says, we'll manage, we always do. But you see Maud's eyes flick to the roof already missing shingles, and you know what she's thinking. Tomorrow something will have to go. You fall asleep wondering if it'll be a goat. Or you. That night your dreams are strange again. Not terrifying, just loud.
Horses. Chains.
A baby crying. A bell that won't stop ringing. When you wake up, you're not sure what time it is. But you're certain of one thing. More than the rats. More than the cold. You hate that red tabad. More than the smell of old lye. But instead, you pull on your boots and prepare for the next day. You want him to trip over a turnip and land face first in Agatha's dye vat. Because here's the truth. You can't survive in a medieval dynasty if you don't know how to bend without breaking. And tonight, you're not broken. Not yet. Maud is already outside, stooped over the garden patch, yanking up what's left of the turnips. The ground is slick, and the tools are dull. You offer to help, and she hands you a shovel so blunt it feels like trying to dig with a spoon. Morning comes with drizzle. Not a heavy rain, just that sort of irritating cold mist that sneaks down your collar and makes everything feel damp, including your soul. Ground's hard, she says. You nod, but the truth is, the earth feels angry. It doesn't want to give anything up today. Cedric trudges past with a broken bucket off to the well. You hear a grunt and a splash moments later. The handle snapped. The well is shallow and silted. The water tastes like metal and moss. Maud boils it anyway. Third time this month, he mutters. Today she's making gruel. Not because she wants to, but because that's what happens when the barley sack is mostly empty and the tax collector still haunts her dreams. Still, she smiles at Lynette and wraps the cloth around her palm like it's silk from Constantinople. It's for Maud's hand. She cut it yesterday trying to fix the roof again. You realise she's not been sleeping well. Her eyes carry heavy moons beneath them. Lynette arrives with a strip of cloth soaked in honey. Got it from the Abbey, she says. They say it heals wounds. After breakfast, such as it is, the real work begins. Today is market day, and you're going. It's not like a market in your world. No colourful stalls, no friendly vendors with little samples, no quaint violin playing in the background. This is medieval bartering. This is desperation on display. The path to the next village is lined with soggy travellers, most carrying bundles of herbs, handmade trinkets or slightly suspicious pies. You carry a woven basket filled with 2 eggs, a chipped comb, and a bundle of dried nettles. Trade smart, Maud warns, and if someone offers you a pig for your soul, ask if it's at least cured. You think she's joking. The market square is a muddy mess of shouting voices and competing smells. There's fish that's definitely not fresh onions strong enough to bring tears, and wool that still smells like sheep. You spot a boy selling magic beans for a copper. He looks about 12 and entirely full of it. A woman named Tilda, with arms like tree trunks, tries to sell you a blessed scarf. You almost consider it until she spits to prove its worth.
The eggs?
You hold on to those, not out of strategy, you just forgot. You end up trading the comb for a piece of beeswax and the nettles for a hunk of coarse soap that looks like someone's elbow. On the walk back, you meet Brother Aidan, a monk with a crooked back and a pouch of dried herbs. He tells you stories of saints who levitated, of sinners who burst into flame, and of the Lord's mercy if you tithe on time. Then he farts loudly and keeps walking. By the time you return home, the drizzle has turned to fog. The whole village is shrouded in it, like someone draped the sky in wet wool. Inside, Maud lights a candle stub and stares at the flame. Lynette coughs to hide her laughter. Dinner is thin again. She doesn't say anything about what you brought back.
She just nods.
But you laugh with Cedric about the monk. And Maud smiles when she sees the beeswax. She'll use it to seal the gaps in the wall. Winter's coming faster than anyone hoped. As you lie down, you hear the rats again. You don't even flinch, which might be the most terrifying thing of all. You're used to it now. But still, you're here.
Still breathing.
And somehow, you've made it through another day. Still in one piece. The sky is bone white when you wake, featureless, flat and unfriendly. There's no sun, just cold light. Today is your 100th day. Not that anyone's counting but you. Cedric is sharpening a stick with a rock. No explanation, no reason, just something to do. His hands have stopped shaking now. Maud is stirring ashes in the hearth, wearing that same tired expression you've come to associate with survival. It's not sadness. It's not even weariness anymore. It's just practiced endurance. The kind that stops asking for miracles and settles for embers that haven't quite gone out. Lynette hands you a bowl of something hot and vaguely edible. She doesn't say good morning, but she pats your shoulder. That's practically a celebration. You step outside. It's quiet, but it's not still. You remember the first one. You were cold, confused. You missed blankets and toothpaste and locks on doors. There's something in the air, a shift. Maybe it's the weather. Maybe it's your nerves. Maybe it's just the weight of what you've done, what you've endured.
100 days.
You still miss all that. Because here, hunger is a lifestyle. But now, you also miss silence that isn't terrifying, solitude that isn't dangerous, hunger that's a voice. There's a new priest at the chapel, younger, sharper. He watches everything like a hawk with theology. You make the mistake of asking if he believes in demons. His answer? Believe? I baptized one last week. You walk away before he elaborates. In the fields, Maud is digging furrows with her bare hands. The wooden plough broke again. The village ox died 4 days ago. You help, not because you want to, because that's what people do now. It's who you are here. One more body among the mud and miracles. Remember Simon? Maud asks, nodding toward a tree stump. Used to play the lute. Fingers froze last winter. You nod. You've learnt to keep nodding. It's safer than asking how many Simons there were. You see your reflection for the first time in weeks. You're thinner, dirtier, your eyes look older. A travelling merchant arrives near dusk. He's got tins of salt, a cracked bell, and a mirror. Sort of. The merchant eyes you up and down. You look like you've seen a ghost, but you're still you. That night, there's stew. Actual stew. With meat. You shake your head. I think I am one. No one asks where it came from. You just eat. Later, Cedric pulls out a carved figurine, small, misshapen, probably meant to be a pig. He hands it to you. For luck, he says. You don't know whether to laugh or cry. You keep it. As you lie in the corner of the hut, wrapped in a patchwork of wool, rags, and borrowed warmth, the wind picks up. The thatch overhead rattles like dry bones.
Not anymore.
But you're not afraid.
Because you made